Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to another episode of my F1 22 My Team Career Mode, episode number 45 today for the Canadian Grand Prix in Season 3. If you guys did miss the previous episode at Azerbaijan, then be sure to go check that one out before you see this one, because that was a very chaotic episode. A lot of drama in that one, including Sergio Perez and Esteban Ocon reuniting and kind of reigniting that old flame they had as teammates as they came together and took themselves both out of the running whilst they were running in a 1-2 for their Alpine team. So that was that was quite outstanding, and so much else happened that race, and we came through it all as we threaded through all the danger, managed to keep ourselves clean, and we came through for our very first win of the season and our best results so far. But of course, it was only Monaco 2 episodes ago that we got a top 5 finish, so it's been a very slow start to the season, and there's no guarantee. You know, Baku has always been a pretty good race for whatever reason. I feel the My Team car, like, you know, Season 2 we got a 1-2 where Albon won it, I came in second, and then we come to Season 3, it wasn't quite the same 1-2, but it was a double podium for our team. So there's just something in the air at Baku and the My Team car. So yeah, I'm not taking anything for granted. If you go off our form and performances all throughout this season, last episode you could say was a bit of a blip, and maybe Canada might be a reality check. I hope it's not, because Montreal is one of my favourite circuits on the F1 calendar in general, and especially on the F1 game. But competition is going to be tough. Red Bull still maintain that performance over the rest of the grid, although their luck still doesn't match that performance level, as once again, it's quite spectacularly, Max Verstappen was dealt another blow, another bout of bad luck with that DNF for him, and of course Albon had that late engine failure. So even though Red Bull are trying their best to actually extract this performance and small advantage they have over the grid, they're yet to do so, and that midfield is so tight. It's got even tighter because Ferrari bring a small upgrade into this one, so they're literally level pegging with the Mercedes and McLaren. So Ferrari actually started off quite well in this season, you know, 2 wins out of the first 3 races, and that was, you know, due to some good strategies, a little bit of rub of the green as well. So who knows, now with Ferrari maybe actually on paper being there performance-wise with their car, they could actually mount a proper challenge. Obviously though, there's stiff competition for some very consistent McLarens. Both of them being up in the top 5 means that McLaren are the closest team giving ourselves a challenge in the Constructors' Championship, and really the only reason we're there is because of our teammate Sebastian Vettel, who's been having one of the best seasons in his entire career in comparison to the last couple of rocky years he's had at Aston Martin in the closing Ferrari years. Last race though may have been a turning point, and I'm hoping to aid that with some more upgrades. You would have seen there I purchased a DRS upgrade, which might help us, you know, with some overtaking in the middle of these races. And of course, generally the pattern's been so far this season, I've just not been able to extract this same kind of lap time that Sebastian has in the other side of the garage on Saturday, and that means that I'm further back. I'm having to do a few more overtakes, and we found it hard because the challenge is hard. Everyone is so competitive into that top 10, you know, just outside of it, because we've got 6 teams vying for the top 10 spot. So I think that's been a reason why we've had a slow start. I think last episode you saw we were maybe a little bit punchier with some overtakes. As I said, the car just seems to go very well at Baku. I don't know, for whatever reason, the My Team chassis just goes very well there. At Canada, mixed situation, you know, mixed emotions coming back to this circuit, because last season I would have said we would have continued that momentum, but obviously I had an engine failure here and I was denied the chance of going for a back-to-back victory in Season 2. Here in Season 3, whether we get that same chance, I don't know, because of course with that Ferrari upgrade, maybe we lose a bit of pace and get pushed down a tiny bit. And also, to be fair, last episode, quite a few people got kind of taken out of the front running. You know, the McLarens, the Alpine, the Red Bull really didn't feature around Baku, and that was to our benefits, and obviously Leclerc's as well. First part of qualifying, one surprising name knocked out. It's not one of the big names in Formula 1, but Esteban Ocon in the Alpine is knocked out. Is that potentially a sign of him as an AI driver getting a knock to his focus and his momentum following that incident with Sergio Perez. You know, he was the one that locked up, tried to take Perez wide, ultimately crashed out his teammate, and then took himself out of the running for, you know, any kind of proper points there. So maybe that's the beginning of the end of Ocon, you know, performing quite well. Looks like Perez has seemed to have shaken that off and will try and do his best, but maybe Montreal may not be the same happy hunting ground for Alpine. And we've seen as of late Haas, with a lack of couple of upgrades compared to everyone else around them, have slipped down a little bit in pace in the last episode into this one. So, as ever, interesting ebb and flow episode to episode with the upgrades coming in. For our team, we're hoping just to keep on moving up as we let Vettel by to start his second flying lap. We get overtaken by Lewis Hamilton. The reigning champ just dives down the inside and fancies going before me on the second run in Q2. I was saying, as you know, our team, we're hoping just to keep on moving up, and that includes confirming ourselves both in the top 10 shootout again, like we did in Baku. But I have to abandon my second lap because of what Hamilton did there, overtaking me. Completely ruined any kind of advantage I was going to get in Sector 1. Luckily enough, it didn't matter in the end, and for him it was pretty crucial to get that second run in because he only just about scrapes by George Russell, not featuring here. I think there was maybe an issue with his car, and I believe he is set to take a penalty for the race tomorrow. So we haven't actually spoken. We spoke about Haas having a bit of a decline. Mercedes, you know, they've been very quiet this entire season. We haven't even really mentioned them too much in the R&D arms race because they've not really done too many upgrades, and they've had a pretty competitive car, you would think, at least according to the R&D chart. But they, just like Red Bull, actually, we talked about Verstappen having bad luck. Both Hamilton and Russell have had their fair share of bad luck. It's not been great going for the German outfit, and at the moment they're in a fight with Haas. So you could probably say now, after, you know, 5-6 rounds of this season, we can see a bit of a pattern emerging, and the status quo has definitely changed. It's Ferrari and McLaren back at the top of Formula 1. Are we there? Well, you know, at the moment, mathematically, yes, but that's also due in part to one amazing Sebastian Vettel so far. So I'm curious to see how we can keep going from here, and if we'll remain in this fight, or will the McLarens and Ferraris overwhelm us. But here we are then in the top 10 shootout. Progress as both of us are into this session again. Rain, though, is hitting us. We've gone straight out there because the rain is falling as we speak, and I want to try and get a dry lap time in. Everyone else has come out as well. You know, one or two being a bit slow. One of them being one of the McLarens is leaving it till now to only start their out lap coming down the pit lane. So he may get hit with a bit more rain than we are. But it's already raining. The rain droplets are forming on the camera, and you can see them streaking off the chassis. So in theory, I have the best track, or the best version of the track, compared to everyone behind me who started their flying laps later, because obviously the rain will be just falling more and more, collecting around, you know, certain areas where there's, you know, little dips, puddles forming, you know, slippery surfaces. And for sure on the last two corners there, just before we get to the Wall of Champions, I certainly felt the track was already quite damp. We go across the line for a purple lap time. We go to the garage after our lap, though, and I'm left, once again, as we have had before on Saturday in this season, with my jaw on the floor, because the rain is coming down even harder now. No one else can set a second lap time, but even though I went out first, I set a slower lap time than everyone, and I have no answer for it. I don't know what happened. I tried to drive the best I could. It was already pretty slippery out there for my lap, so I can't imagine what it would have been for the AI behind me. But as always is the case sometimes in these kind of conditions where you've got that crossover, the AI just so amazing at it. And, you know, Vettel's extracted time 7/10 quicker than myself to get up into P6. The Red Bulls make a really big statement with a 1-2 front row lockout there. Verstappen on pole position for the first time this season, with Albon in second. So are they looking to properly kickstart their season here in Montreal? We're going to have to see if their bad luck returns on the Sunday. But like I said, McLaren and Ferrari are there. Hamilton trying his best to pull that Mercedes up and, you know, try and shake off his gremlins as he gets ahead of Piastri, and Sainz ahead of me, just showing that even with a slow Haas NASCAR, he got ahead of me. So that's a howler, really, in terms of that Saturday qualifying. So I hope that's not more of the same to come on the Sunday. There maybe could be some rain at the end of the Grand Prix, so we're going to have to see. Let's go to the grid and find out. Once again, I've got places to make up to even just bridge the gap to where Vettel is on the grid.
Hello and welcome to the Ile Notre Dame once again for what promises to be another incredible Canadian Grand Prix at this fiercely competitive circuit, where pole position can often be decided by less than 1/10 of a second. We'll be seeing top speeds of around 210 miles per hour here at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, with around 2/3 of the lap taken at full throttle. High-speed chicanes spell potential danger, especially at the infamous Wall of Champions, and watch out for overtaking into the hairpin and that final chicane. So with the race not far away from starting, here's what today's grid rundown looks like. Max Verstappen put in a fantastic lap yesterday, and he'll start from pole position. And Alex Albon lines up alongside. Considering the rest of the grid, we have Gasly, Leclerc, Lando Norris, and Vettel. Hamilton, Oscar Piastri, Sainz, the owner-driver, Perez, Liam Lawson, Kevin Magnussen and Schwartzman, Drugovich, Bottas, Théo Pourchaire and Esteban Ocon, Tsunoda, Mick Schumacher, Stroll and George Russell ends our grid lineup. With preparations almost complete, let's head down to the track. And a warm welcome to Natalie Pinkham, who's beside me in the commentary box today. Let's have a chat about McLaren. What do you make of their performance so far this season?
Well, the atmosphere within the team seems very positive at the moment. Everyone seems like they're in great spirits and having a lot of fun doing what they do. And that has definitely contributed to the performances we've seen.
Well, this is going to be a big test for Red Bull, Honda and Max Verstappen. His first pole position of the season. Can he just convert it to even minimum a podium, a top 5? It's been that much of a dismal season for the two-time Dutch champion. And there's so much competition behind him. His teammate Albon, the McLarens, the Ferrari of Leclerc, and then maybe potentially also us Audis, Vettel looking to move forward from P6 on the grid. Ourselves, well, we've got a couple of cars to overtake, and then we'll try and see if we can try and match Vettel and then try and take the fight to the teams ahead in the top 5 positions. We're going to find out. It's a very overcast Montreal here, so rain maybe really is lurking in the second portion of this race. But we're all starting on the medium tyre. We're looking to try and face our car quite aggressively left here to try and get a jump on that man on the left-hand side, Carlos Sainz and the Repsol Haas, and get ahead for P8 into turn 1. Maybe we can make a dive on Piastri. At least that's my game plan, hopefully, into turn 1. We'll see how it goes as we go to 5 red lights. The Canadian Grand Prix lights out, and we're underway. It's a slow one for Carlos Sainz. Initially, after a good getaway for us, we bogged down with a bit of wheel spin. We haven't got fully past Sainz at turn 1, having to finish off the move as we just tuck in underneath Piastri's rear wing. He's side by side with Lewis Hamilton. Up at the sharp end, it looks like Pierre Gasly has got into the lead ahead of the 2 Red Bulls as we try and go 3 abreast. Hamilton nearly puts us in the wall as we try and be a bit cheeky on the left-hand side there. We had to step out of that one. To be fair, Hamilton had all the right to squeeze us, but in the end of it, we actually managed to dive down the inside of the next left-hander to get up into P8, but it was very sketchy stuff for a moment there. As we now look into lap number 2, confirmation, the Frenchman Pierre Gasly leads the way, so he overtook both Red Bull cars in one sector of 5 red lights to get up into P1. Verstappen now down to P2, Albon ahead of Leclerc, Norris P5, Vettel still in P6 then ahead of that Ferrari Piastri, who we're looking at, as you saw there in the background, moving about in the brake zone, hustling and harrying him and trying to scare him a bit in the mirrors. Can we get the Aussie man now down this run into the final couple of corners for lap 2 on the inside? Piastri doesn't go defensive, does squeeze us a fair odd bit. He goes across the curb. We can't get the P7. Yellow flags is Lewis Hamilton. Lewis Hamilton, the reigning champion, is in the Wall of Champions. It collects another one. I think he was under pressure from Sergio Perez, so maybe just a mistaken lock-up for Lewis, or trying to go a bit too quickly on the power. Maybe just slammed his car into the wall. Look at a replay. So this was behind our fight with Piastri, and Hamilton, I think he just took a bit too much sausage curb on the left-hander on the second part of that chicane, and then just vaulted towards it, because he just didn't look like he was slowing down at all as he careered towards the Wall of Champions. So he is out, and it's going to be another long day for Mercedes with Russell with the grid penalty. He's way down in the bottom half of this race as we now go green again on to lap 6. Still looking at the back of this Ferrari of Piastri. He defended pretty well, to be fair, in the chicane just before the safety car came out. So we're going to have to try it again, and maybe this time we go on the outside rather than the inside, because he actually managed to give us a good old squeeze to keep that position. Meanwhile, at the sharp end, on to lap 8. Verstappen has just got a run on Gasly to overtake the Frenchman, but he comes back at him. The McLaren makes a bit of contact with the Red Bull, tries to force Verstappen wide. Albon tried to get in the mixer a bit, but Gasly went from defending Albon to attacking Verstappen, and the Frenchman is driving in fine form, it would seem. He's on maximum attack, and he's looking to keep the first place that Verstappen so narrowly took for a moment there into turn 1, and the McLaren has done it. He gets back into P1, and Verstappen has to look at the rear wing of the McLaren once again, but that was some great acceleration off the final corner for Verstappen. So the Red Bulls are looking quite lively today, and maybe that's one area where they're ahead on McLaren for the acceleration, but it seems in a straight line the McLaren has an edge as we're now looking to dive down the inside of Piastri. A bit of a concertina effect into the hairpin, so I took my chance there to go down the inside, but at that hairpin on this game, the AI are so unbelievably strong mid-corner to get on the power, and so it means Piastri pulls alongside us. Even though I'm using a bit of ERS, I don't have too much, but I'm using a bit, and DRS, he actually gives us a real good drag race down that straight. We only just narrowly get that position and keep the P7. That Ferrari is also equally quite quick, so it definitely seems like we still need a bit of work to be done in the engine power department. Like I alluded to, only before the upgrade we brought at Baku, we were the worst engine power on this entire grid, so still a few upgrades may be needed with some HU facility investment, because I think that's also affecting our race pace a little bit, but just generally also, to be fair, individually my race pace still needs some work this season, because 2 laps later, lap 9 to 11, we're only now really starting to give Vettel a little bit of a worry, both of us with DRS open, but he goes defensive, so he actually saw us in the mirrors and thought we were enough of a threat, but 2 whole laps to close up to him whilst he was stuck in dirty air. So Vettel continues to just be driving at a very decent level as our teammate, and is causing us some frustration, because 2 laps later, lap 13, we're still looking at the back of his car, looking at that big red rear wing with the Audi logo on it, and not looking like we're any closer to making an overtake potentially as we close up in the last 2 corners. Get a great run off that final bend. Can we maybe make a move into turn 1 across the line? So close. We're going to go for it. Dive down the inside, but Vettel just places his car so well to defend and pinch us into turn 1. We tried to go around the outside, and in the end of it, we actually get a bit too clever for ourselves, lose a bit of time, and Piastri sends one down the inside. I tried to go for the wide line to try and find some grip around the outside. Instead, I just took myself wide, then oversteered, and then Piastri had a go at us. And Piastri, though, having had a go at us, now locks up himself, makes a mistake of his own, and Sergio Perez comes flying through in the Alpine. There were yellow flags in that sector, because I believe that's Kevin Magnussen, who was retiring out of this Grand Prix, parking up his car on that section of the circuit. circuit, but as they entered it, it went green, and so the Alpine was able to make the move up into P8. So plenty of fights going on up and down the field for the kind of last points paying position. Sainz trying his best to stick with it in P10 in the Repsol Haas. Like I alluded to, the Haas team haven't had too many upgrades in the last couple of episodes, so they've definitely slipped down in terms of a bit of pace, and maybe just generally their drivers have lost a bit of momentum. Meanwhile, back in R5, lap 16, so this is 6-7 laps later since getting up into P7, trying to get to P6, and finally we do so, but it may just be because we were coming in and Vettel knew that and maybe just let off the throttle. I don't know, but that was a frustrating first stint. We just could not get past Sebastian, you know, from lap 9 to 16. We just, well, we were fighting, we were working so hard just to get close enough, and then every time I got close, he either, you know, parked the car quite well into the last couple of corners, turn 1 as well, then a mistake for Martin, and there we did overtake him, but I don't know if that's a for sure overtake or if he actually just let us by knowing that we're coming in, because that would have been quite awkward, you know, if we were side by side and I was on the inside of him and he was trying to turn right into the final corner. I was trying to turn, go straight on into the pit lane. That would have been a disaster and a half, so I don't know. We're going to have to see when they come out of the pits, but we've actually come out behind George Russell. Annoyingly, he will give us a bit of a tow with DRS, but ideally I wanted some clean air to try and warm up these hard tyres and go on, but it won't matter because as we look on the mini-map on the left-hand side, Vettel is just coming out of the pits now, so we will get ahead of him and stay ahead of him. So good work to finally get past him, and now can we press on and try and close up to Norris and Leclerc. Speaking of the McLaren, Pierre Gasly into the lead of the race now in that round of pit stops, but he now locks up into the final corner, and Albon and Verstappen are going to have a good run. Albon, he's gotten ahead of Verstappen in the pit stops and now shoots past Pierre Gasly to take the lead of the Canadian Grand Prix. But how has that happened? Red Bull have allowed Albon to get ahead of Verstappen in the pit stops. They left Albon out one lap longer. Maybe just Albon just had such an amazing in-lap and he got ahead of Verstappen, and so that put him in a great place to then take advantage of Gasly's mistake. But that's just funny to look at how many times we've seen in real life where Red Bull strategies enabled Verstappen to become the lead Red Bull car in their scenario. Of course, to be fair, so far this season, he has been the more consistent and lead Red Bull car compared to Verstappen, so maybe in terms of the championship fight, Albon's better placed to maybe be now in the lead because he could actually get the championship lead if we went on to win this race, maybe, and Vettel finishes lower enough. Meanwhile, now you've been watching on us closing up to this train, tail-ended by the McLaren, whose rear end steps out. Can we have a good run? We go to the left-hand side. The McLaren shuts the door, but we set the fastest lap of the Grand Prix whilst we do it, but we can't get the McLaren. Then we're going to have to try the hairpin, and we're going to go for a big, bold lunge. We almost career into the back of Leclerc and just about managed to slow the car down. Norris switchbacks us from left to right to re-overtake us there. It was a bit of a kamikaze dive, as I don't want to be left stuck frustrated behind the McLaren all race long. And now we continue the fight down the main back straight. DRS open, round the outside we go, but the McLaren's got his nose in. We have to cut the curb, make contact on the exit to give him enough room to work with, but in the end we maybe gave him too much room to work with as Lando gets back ahead, dive down the inside, bit more contact into turns 1, turns 2, round the outside, and we just can't find the grip to go the long way round. And the McLaren with some stern defense, of course, they're the main team we're fighting right now in the constructors fight. He goes defensive at the hairpin on the inside. We're going to take the outside line, trying to pick up the throttle, but he's just so good on power, and ahead Leclerc is pulling away now. We're fighting so much, so we're losing so much time to the Ferrari, but this is a crucial fight for the constructors battle and just some more points in this race as we finally get past Lando in the McLaren. He's down to P6 and he's so slow through that turn that Vettel now has a good run, DRS open, and Vettel is very opportunistic as he has been this entire season, clever driving to get up into P6. Meanwhile, at the sharp end, Albon is slow off the final corner. Gasly took so much curb to get a bit of a jump on him and now sends one down the inside, so the two are going to swap positions. Gasly back into the lead, and all of a sudden now with 10 laps to go, things are heating up in this race because Leclerc has also closed up. It's going to be a four-way battle, the two Red Bulls versus the Ferrari and McLaren. Leclerc is going to go for an absolute dive bomb and a half to try and get past both Verstappen and Albon and then have a go potentially at Pierre Gasly, but Albon fights back on the exit and will get back into P2. It's a drag race now down this straight. Everyone with DRS apart from Gasly. The Ferrari on the outside, Albon on the inside. This is going to be very fine. The two make a bit of contact. Leclerc across the curb. Verstappen goes through for the double overtake. So Leclerc trying to make a double overtake work. In the end of it, it's Verstappen that makes it work, and he gets ahead of his teammate and the Ferrari in one corner, and he's into P2, and now he can have a run at Pierre Gasly. So it is all kicking off here in the top four as they're swapping left, right and centre for those podium positions and the chance to maybe try and put some pressure on Gasly to get the P1, of course. But meanwhile then, back in our race, I want to report in that fight we had with the McLaren, although we did get the position, we actually got a bit of damage on our front wing, and so the front end has not been as forgiving as you'd like, and it means Vettel is closing up, and we're going to play the team game and not put up too much of a fight. He's going to fly by us with DRS, to be fair. We're going to save our ERS up, and I just want to give him the chance to close up to Albon, because there's only 2 seconds to that top four fight up the road, although immediately into turn one I have a little look at Vettel, so I don't know how this is going to work out, but I wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt and see if he can maybe try and have a go at the top four. But a lap and a half later, Vettel's not really any closer to the Albon than I was, really, and into the hairpin, Vettel's going to have a huge lock up on those hard tyres and invite us to re-overtake him on the inside there. Snap of oversteer for us, though, will invite him back to come through on the left-hand side, but I think that's pretty much his opportunity blown there in terms of having a go at the top four. We just don't quite have the pace to match Ferrari, Red Bull and McLaren toe-to-toe yet. You know, Gasly driving at the level McLaren at. Lando clearly struggling a little bit today, so we managed to get him, but I think we're going to have to settle down for P5 and 6 in this race. Meanwhile, further ahead though, for the race lead, Verstappen is pressurising Pierre Gasly, and on to lap 31, gets the exit and a half he needs, opens DRS, comes through on the left-hand side to power past the McLaren into turn one, and Verstappen takes the lead of the Canadian Grand Prix. It was a supreme exit there for him. Gasly didn't even really make a mistake at all, but Verstappen just had such a great exit, probably saved up battery as well, and you know, could probably sit behind him for a lap or two to save that battery, because there's about a 1.6 second gap behind to Leclerc, who's stayed ahead of Albon in all of this. So I think Verstappen just, you know, sat behind him, saved DRS, saved his tyres a bit, and then went for it, and it's worked out for him because he's got P1 ahead of a very quick Pierre Gasly, I might add, today. We'll see if anything changes in these last 4 laps. Also some fighting going on the bottom end of the top 10. Piastri ahead of Perez and Sainz as we move on now to the last lap of the Grand Prix. It's overcast. The rain never really came. It may be coming just after the checkered flag as the clouds have loomed over Montreal, and Vettel is pressurising us on the last lap of the Grand Prix. Left frustrated maybe at us re-overtaking him, and he maybe had a bit more race pace in the tank, but I let him by earlier. He didn't make the most of it, and now on the last lap he may be coming to ruin the party and assert his dominance in this team. On the left-hand side he goes, we defend, and Vettel locks up again like he did the hairpin. This time across the final corners he'll somehow just manage to stay ahead of Norris to keep the P6. We come across the line in the P5 and we survive to finish ahead of Vettel, only for the second time this season, but you know, these little things matter in terms of building confidence.
They take the checkered flag then here in Canada in what has been another fabulous Grand Prix. So Natalie, what do you think helped them deliver this result?
Well, they certainly stood out as a driver with tons of confidence on the track. I think their ability to keep their cool, even during some of the more hectic parts of the race, meant they were able to capitalise on the mistakes of other drivers, giving them the opportunity to make their way to the top spot with ease.
Here come today's winners. The team at Red Bull have done a phenomenal job recently, and it's clear to see that they've put in the work, and they should be so proud of the victory they've secured here.
So Red Bull finally get off the mark. They finally get a race victory, and it's not the man who's been spearheading their team this season so far. Albon, more pole positions than Verstappen, has more points in the championship right now, but it's Verstappen, ye old faithful, their golden boy, that secures them their first win of the year. That is a big one for Max to kickstart his season, and for Red Bull to finally break that duck of doing well on the Saturday, but on the Sunday falling away. And it's a real impressive drive because Gasly looks so strong today. Very impressive from Leclerc as well to get another podium, chipping away and staying consistent as ever as he can. Dragging that Ferrari up. Piastri down in P9 maybe says more about the difference in talent between Leclerc and obviously only his second ever year in Formula 1 is Piastri, so he's still growing as an AI driver, and so it means Leclerc is remaining in second place in the championship. Gasly climbs up to third. We're up to fourth as Lando slips down the order. Verstappen climbs all the way up to P8 in this championship and is now, looking a lot better in this one. He's still got a long way to go because he lost so many points early on in the season, but it's a real great start for him. But Vettel still stays ahead in the standings. We stay ahead of McLaren, but you can see it's going to be a close fight. Ferrari are there as well, 38 points. That's not too many points. Even Red Bull 43 points back. It's all to play for, and there's still so much of this season to go. So at the moment, it's looking good ahead of those teams, but we need to continue our rate of growth, our R&D, investment in HQ facilities, of course, on the engine side of things. But Vettel remains consistent and ahead by 12 points, so his gap is eroded a little bit, but he's still doing a good enough job right now. And, we know from the past, in the V8 era, the Red Bull era, Vettel was known for being able to control a championship from race to race and just keep it ticking over, and that's what he's done so far this season so well. But it's a solid race for us. Yes, we weren't as high as we'd hoped. We've still got clear work to do to bridge the performance gap to Red Bull, Ferrari and McLaren, but I think I can take solace in my own race being quite good, finishing at a Vettel, standing strong there. So we just keep on working, and eventually hopefully the car will be right there to allow us to fight on the Saturday and then the Sunday for those podiums and race wins that everyone wants. But guys, if you have enjoyed the episode, hit the like button, let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're new around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.